Welcome to the Saturday Slam and Jam. I'm your host, Andrew Schleck. Go to theathletic.com/NBA show and get The Athletic for a discounted rate. Playoffs are still going on. Very interesting stuff. Nikola Jokic has been incredible. But we're going to talk about a different team. Got my co-host Alex Spears with me. Alex, what's up?
Hi, Andrew.
Talking about two teams today that are not a part of the playoffs currently. We're talking Blazers and Pistons today. And to talk about the Blazers, we called on our Blazers guy for Slam and Jam, Sean Hyken. You can find Sean's writing about the Blazers at rosegardenreport.com or listen to him on the Rose Garden Report podcast. Sean, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. I'm still in Chicago. I was here all week for the combine and the lottery, so it's been an interesting week on the beat that I cover.
Yeah. Anything interesting from the combine itself that you'd like to share?
Oh, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I don't watch any college basketball, so I'm not the one to ask about draft guys. And when I'm at these events, I'm more so talking to people than I am watching like the scrimmages that are going on the court. So, you talk to people, you hear some things. The most interesting thing that happened to me this week was I was actually one of the media members that was in the room for the lottery drawing, which I've never done before. So it was kind of cool to be in the room. Obviously, this was the year to do it because everybody was waiting to see where Victor Wembanyama was going to go. But
yeah,
the Blazers contingent, Sergey Oliva, one of their assistant GMs, was the guy they had in the room.
Okay,
and he was in a pretty good mood after they moved up from 5-3, which, obviously everybody wanted Wemby, but moving up into the top 3 is not the worst place in the world to be.
Wow. Was anybody snacking on anything back there? Or people just...
They had just kind of a standard spread of just kind of, sandwiches and just whatever, like bags of chips, sodas. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just, they just kind of had a standard spread.
Anybody from any team like nervously snacking on like carrots or something that you noticed?
We weren't close enough to, because they had us in one section. Okay. And then they had the team representatives up in a different section. So I wasn't really able to see what everybody was eating. I think the most notable thing from the reactions is that Brian Wright, the Spurs general manager, like barely reacted when they got called for the number 1 pick. He just did like a little fist pump, and that was about it.
Well, Sean, the Blazers did not land Victor Wembanyama, but they did move up 2 spots to the 3rd spot in the draft. The immediate talk nationally was about whether the Blazers should trade Damian Lillard and build around the 3rd pick and Shaedon Sharpe. You and others covering the Blazers have been quick to push back against that idea. What do you think people are missing when they are immediately jumping to trading Dame?
I generally think, and I mean, there are a few times when this is, there are situations where it's different, but I generally think that a GM trading your best player for the quote unquote picks and young players package, I usually think that's kind of a scam that they just kind of run on ownership in order to keep their job security up. Because then if you do that, you can say, hey, you can't fire me for 5 more years because I have to, build this team. Now, it's a little bit like Oklahoma City, I think, is a little bit of a different situation because both Paul George and Russell Westbrook wanted to go, and Sam was happy to take the picks. But I've never, like, this idea that, we have this guy and he's making a lot of money and he's in his mid-30s and, even though he's the best player in franchise history and he still had just, arguably the best year of his career and made all NBA, we should, trade him and, get picks and build around, somebody that might one day possibly be as good as Damian Lillard, but you don't know that he's going to be as good as Damian Lillard. And the other thing, I mean, the thing to me with Dame that I think a lot of people are kind of taking for granted is all the other stuff. Like, obviously on the court, he is still as good as he is, but all of the organizational stuff and the cultural stuff and the locker room stuff, I don't think people really want to see what that's going to look like if he's gone as much as they think that they do. And I think that there's this idea that just because Oklahoma City has turned it around pretty quickly and Utah has turned it around pretty quickly, that's always how it goes when you trade your franchise player for picks and young players. More often than not, you're what the Orlando Magic were for 10 years after they traded Dwight Howard, or what the Timberwolves were after they traded Kevin Garnett. Like, do you guys really want that? I mean, maybe Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller or whoever or Shaden Sharp someday is as good as Dame, but like, are you so sure about that? Like, Shaden Sharp was awesome for the last month of the season. Are you so sure that that means he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, that you're going to trade a top 75 player of all time to just reorient everything around him? Okay, all right. You can do that if you want. I can tell you that's not where the Blazers organization's head is at right now. That's not the mindset that they're operating under.
Yeah, I mean, me and Andrew, obviously, we're Thunder fans, so we're tank brained to the max, and so I certainly like empathize with people who are thinking that way. But there's two things for me, like the fact that no one from the team, none of the beat reporters, Dame, they've all been so like in lockstep this entire time about what the plan is for the future of this team. And it seems like a lot of times people just don't listen. And then the second thing is I have yet to see a fake Dame trade that even would make sense for Portland. And that seems like a big component.
That's the other thing that people like when you can throw out this hypothetical. Yeah, like you should trade Dame and blow it up and get some picks and young players. The part that nobody can ever answer is what's the trade and why would Portland do it? Because the stuff that the ones that I've seen thrown out there, like, yeah, the Blazers are going to trade Damian Lillard coming off an All-NBA season for Tyler Hero and like mid first round picks 5 years out into the future. Okay, yeah,
why bother?
What is that going to do for them? It's. I think that I'd be interested in your guys' perspective on this as somebody who, guys who follow the NBA very closely and cover a lot of this stuff and pay attention to a lot of the conversations around this stuff. I think that the lasting legacy of the decision 13 years ago is that people at the time when they were like, oh, LeBron is a coward, LeBron is, this hurts his legacy that he left Cleveland to go to Miami and team up with guys. I think that in retrospect, those takes have aged so badly that people have kind of overcorrected the other way. And now anytime there's a player on a team, especially in a small market, that maybe isn't like a title favorite, people just default to, oh, this guy needs to go, or they need to trade this guy and rebuild because they're not going to win a title. And to the point where people think it's weird when that isn't what happens. Like, does that make sense? But that's kind of something like, I feel like all we talk about now is like which stars are going to ask for trades, what the play. Like, I feel like people care about that now more than the games. I think that if Dame were to go to Joe Cronin and to ownership and say, look, we tried, it's time, let's go get me somewhere else. I think that if he were to do that, they would be willing to work with him and get him somewhere he wants to go and do right by him. But until he asks for it, that is not something that they're thinking about doing. Like they're not going to Blake Griffin him. They just signed him to this extension. They're not going to be like, oh, best player in franchise history, let's just trade you because you're on a big contract and you're getting older. Like that's not how they operate. And like, honestly, like we just saw like the Sixers did the whole process, tanking, we're reorganizing everything around picks. How many conference finals have they made?
Yeah, well, what you just brought up, I was thinking about Dirk.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, social media wasn't as developed as it is now, but I don't remember back then this obsession with like, we got to get Dirk out of Dallas. Like, he's never going to win in Dallas.
Because it was all pre-decision. The decision is when that all changed, I think.
Yeah.
Because after that, like immediately following the decision, then we had Carmelo forcing his way to New York. We had, I think Chris Paul was after that, going from New Orleans to the Clippers, and then Dwight Howard going to the Lakers. And it just kind of, every year there's one or two guys at that level. And now it's, I'll never forget this. I was watching the Bucks on Christmas Day of this would have been 2019, Christmas Day. I forget who they were playing, but they had the early game on Christmas. Giannis is the reigning MVP. They just lost in the Eastern Finals to Toronto. And yeah, they have the best record in the East at that point out on Christmas. The entire pregame show of this Bucks game on Christmas on ESPN is not just, this was before he had signed the extension, when there was still like a lot of talk about his
Right.
future. It was not just like speculating about it. Like people on the panelists on the show or whatever on Countdown were actively saying, "Oh, he needs to leave. He needs." Like, they were like actively advocating for him to leave and go to where, Dallas or Miami or wherever. And it's just like,
Right.
I don't know. I think that's stuff. I think that I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts. Like when I was younger, right, when I hadn't done this as much, I used to be a lot more about like the asset management and the like, oh, they need to trade this guy and get draft picks because he's older than 31. But I don't know, man. It's like, and especially with the way that the West is right now, like I think they feel like they're not going to get Giannis or Joel Embiid or somebody like that this summer. But I think if they trade the third pick for somebody, then they feel like maybe they could be this year's Kings and be the 3 seed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to ask you
mean,
because go ahead.
I was just going to say that NBA fans are much more about the soap opera dopamine rush stuff more than they are about the game.
Yeah.
They love the soap opera of it. It's way more interesting if Dame wants to go somewhere else because it disrupts things and it's all these little talking points here. If he actually does just want to stay, there's no drama.
Which I don't know how many times he has to say that in every single interview that he gives
hasn't said it enough,
people...
Sean. He needs a few more times.
And this is something that also annoys me too, because I mean, a couple of different times this past season, because I mean, you always see the clips that like go viral on like the JJ Redick podcast or like whatever podcast he's on or whatever else the case may be, where he gets asked about it, the clip gets aggregated, and it's like Damian Lillard talks about why he wants to stay in Portland, and then you see all the quote tweets that are like, enough with Dame saying how loyal he is, like that's great, you don't need to tell us all. And it's like, Dame does not seek out telling people that. People keep asking him about it because most people who cover the NBA and are like interviewing, Dame on these things have no creativity, and that's the only thing they know how to ask him about. And then he gives the same answer he always gives, and that clip gets circulated, and people get mad at him for not saying what they want him to say. And like, I've talked to Dame about it. Dame is sick of getting asked about it. Dame would be perfectly happy to never be asked about it. He said what he has to say about it. And until that changes, there's no reason to keep asking him about it.